Solutions to the world's environmental crisis in the form of clean, non-polluting new energy technologies that may assure a future for mankind are coming to planet Earth in a groundbreaking new video. Free energy, the race to 0 point.
We live in a vast sea of energy. Everything, every atom, every subatomic particle is in constant motion, spinning eternally. Even in the cold, dark, absolute vacuum of empty space, there exists what new physics is calling the quantum vacuum flux. It is the ether of the ancients, the life force energy of metaphysics, are the random fluctuations of this vast field of potential in which space, time, are embedded. Now, theoretically and mathematically proven, the question no longer is, does this 0 point energy exist? But rather, can we tap this inexhaustible resource of free and unlimited energy and manifest new technologies which are both inexpensive and environmentally safe? One thing is certain. If we continue on the course of rapidly burning fossil fuels and relying on nuclear fission, the future of our civilization is in grave jeopardy. We're at a critical juncture where the ravages of industrial pollution and radioactive waste have exceeded the carrying capacity of Mother Earth. Our finite reserves of oil and gas will be completely exhausted by the year 2025 at the present rate of consumption. Large corporate and governmental self-interest ignore this pending crisis and resist change to the status quo. The question must be asked, is this the kind of world we want to pass down to future generations? Emerging on the frontiers of science, a pioneering breed of theoretical physicists and inspired inventors are challenging the way we think about harnessing the unseen forces of nature. Despite ridicule, lack of funding, and outright suppression, they are confronting an outmoded classical worldview and ushering in a monumental scientific revolution. In this program, you will witness the groundbreaking work of tireless inventors and visionary scientists who may hold the keys to true energy independence for every person on Earth, from Nikola Tesla to the reality of cold fusion and beyond.
Free energy, the race to 0 point. $34.95, $39.95 in the PAL format, plus shipping and handling. Please add shipping and handling with all orders. Orders outside the continental United States, please email Lightworks for a photo shipping and handling costs. Our email address is lightworks@lightworksav.com. That's lightworksav.com, as in Lightworks Audio and Video.
Morning, everyone. I really want to thank you for being here and for the love that you have shown me over the years and the support that you've given me. I just want to let you know I really do care and appreciate this. I know some of you are new and probably have never heard of anything that we've done, but you will. It's what we're about to present is something brand new. We've presented it in Seattle once before, and we talked about it in a couple Earth Sky workshops, but really this is the first time that we are going to be giving this out to the world. And it's a great message, I think, that you will see this as it unfolds. Inla Ish. Inla Ish means you are another me. And this is how the Mayans greeted each other, and they literally saw each person that came up to them as not just an extension, which is a kind of a one way of looking at it. It's more than an extension. They actually saw the spirit in the other person as them. And my life is based on that. Whenever I look into the eyes of anyone else, I see the Christ within them. And so everything I'm going to be saying today will be coming from that place. Because this is the great secret. This is how the Mayans, by the way, I mean, they all disappeared on a single day. Couple million Mayans just disappeared. No bones, no bodies, no nothing, just gone. And it's because they understood the unity of life. And we are about to do the same thing on a worldwide level. We're about to transmute into a whole new way of existing. And I'm really honored to be here on this planet at this time, because this is a big one. This is a really big one. I'm going to be very, very precise, you might say, today, because we're being filmed, and also because the time constraints are limited in the amount of time. When we first did this, well, we planned this a year ago. We had a certain idea, and since then everything's been thrown out. We had to start all over again, and even since the last time we gave the presentation, it's changed. And so it's okay. This is the way it is. So to begin, I'm going to have a sip of water. Water's going to be a big key in all this eventually. So I'm going to just sort of step into this. There's going to be 5 phenomena that we're going to talk about. 5 entirely, seemingly different things that are going on. There's a couple more that I'll mention at the end of this. I'm not bringing them up because they can't be proven at all right now, whether they're real or not. Eventually, I believe they will come out as being real, but we'll just sort of leave them toward the end. But these 5, once you see them, they do something. They begin to see in a whole new way. The first 2 of these you already know. You know them inside and out, you think. And but these 2 have been hidden. The worlds have made sure that you don't know what they are. The third one is one that is just emerging on the world right now, and there's great controversy over it. But we'll present it, and I believe it's true, and that's why I'm presenting it. The fourth one, hardly anyone knows about at all. A few people, almost no one. A few flower of life people probably. But most of the world is not aware of it, but they're about to be. And the fifth one has to do with the children, which will be given this afternoon. So to begin with this sequence, there's going to be a slide presentation here for a little bit. And I'm going to first talk about the history of the flower of life very quickly. And it's not going to be a long, drawn-out thing. We're talking about like 10 minutes here. And just about, I think, 8 slides or 9 slides. And I'm doing this because the background needs to be laid down. I'm sure that there are people in the audience that have no idea what the flower of life is or what that information was. And the context of that is important relative to what we're about to talk about. And also the people who will be seeing this video, there's bound to be many of those that have no idea about this at all. So we're going to start in here. And since late 84, early 85, until the middle of 1994, for almost 10 years, a presentation was given around the world called The Flower of Life, which is this workshop that was given. It was given orally, so we didn't publish out anything. It was only given orally. And then at one point, this workshop was turned over to facilitators, other people who were trained to give this, and they went out to the world. There's somewhere around 300 facilitators in the world, and they're in at least, the last count, about 33 countries. And it's continuing to grow, probably because there's something real here. And usually, if it isn't, people don't look at it after a while. And for a long time, I said I was going to put this into a book, which took 5 years. A little slow, but I was very busy, and that has finally happened. This is the cover of the new book that just came out about 3 months ago, called "The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life," and it's volume 1, and it is just the beginning. It's about just a little less than half of the information, and the real important information is not in there yet. It's being timed on volume 2, which will come out right before the end of this year, right before the year 2000. Everything is timing in this world. And so that should come out. It won't take 5 years this time, I don't think. And now what this information is around, what it's all about. Why is it any different than any other information? Why do people care about this? Because many years ago, we discovered something in Egypt on one of the oldest walls in Egypt. In fact, one of the oldest walls in the world in our civilization. Wall's about roughly 6,000 years old, and there was burned into this wall was an etching of a design. The design looked like this. And as this design unfolded in my life, I began to understand what the name was that was given to it by many of the ancient races around the world. And most of them called it the flower of life. We first found this in Egypt, but since then, we found it, I think after that was in England, and then Ireland, and then in Israel, and then in Greece, then in Turkey, and in Switzerland, and in Iceland, and in Japan, in China, in Tibet. Recently, we've even found it in the Yucatan and Chichen Itza from the Mayans. It was pretty well dispersed all over the world, and there's about, I don't know, another 8 or 9 places I'm not saying right now. And so why was this same design so important to the ancient peoples all over the world? At least that was the question I asked myself. And I spent a long time decoding what this meant. With the help of the angelic realm, and certain other people and teachers and beings from around the world to help me to understand what this really was. And the final bottom line of it is what the ancients believed was this was the absolute key to the entire creation, that there was absolutely nothing in existence, no word you can say, no concept or thought that you could put out, or even a feeling that isn't entirely and completely identified within here. Every law of physics, every structural pattern known in the universe, every single thing, including biological life forms and the very shape of them and the color of their eyes and how they're formed, everything, it's all in there. And you can prove it. It's not just maybe it's in there. It's absolutely in there. And what unfolded from all of this was something that's now being called sacred geometry. All of sacred geometry and all levels of existence of sacred geometry are contained totally within that one image right now. And sacred geometry is the underlying forms and patterns and proportions that everything is created through. The interesting thing about it is that you, as a human being, have that pattern around you. From, if you were to look above or from below you, you have a spherical one of these located directly around you in an electromagnetic field. This magnetic field, electromagnetic field is contained primarily in the microwave range and sits at about 4 degrees Kelvin, which is about 4 degrees above absolute zero. You can scientifically prove it's there if you have the correct instrument. But in that outer field of the flower of life, three-dimensionally, so each one of those are not circles, spheres, there are many, many, many shapes and forms that are contained within there, which contain within them all the levels of consciousness in existence. So you are a seed that contains all possibility without exception. I was recently in the Yucatan with a Mayan shaman named Hutzbatson doing ceremony. And while we were there was a man that you do know more, Edgar Mitchell, who was one of the astronauts who landed on the moon. And he was talking about the new science that is emerging in NASA. And as some of you may know, the relativity as presented out by Einstein and the quantum physics, quantum mechanics that emerged later in that never really fit together. There were many little points and places that were incongruent. And the search for the unified field theory has been going on for years and years and years. Many people claiming they found it. But NASA is now claiming they have found it. And Edgar said that to try to understand what has happened over the last few years is almost impossible by normal human ways of looking at things. That we have evolved very, very quickly over the last 5 years. He said that in the last 5 years, NASA has learned as much as entire civilization of the planet has learned in the last 6,000 years. And that they have learned as much in the last 6 months as they've learned in the last 5 years. And that was about 7 months ago, so who knows where they are now. It's a straight up curve. And what they have found is that the human body is a holographic image of the entire creation of the universe. And that we live in a hologram. We literally live in a hologram. That any object, whether it's a beer can or a car or our human body, is a piece of this hologram that the universe is, and that just as in a hologram, if you take a photograph of a hologram and you rip off a little piece of it, it contains the image of the whole thing, even though you just ripped off a little piece of it. Well, your body, your physical body is the same way. You are a hologram of everything. The location of Sirius and the entire star pattern out in space and everything that's out there can be determined from your body. And not only outer space and the depth of the macrocosm, but the same way on the microcosm going in. All of that is all contained within you, within your physical body. Your physical body contains this. And not only does it do that, but there's a reverse of it. Your physical body may be sitting in this room, but NASA says that it can be located anywhere in space or time. That you exist everywhere at once through time and space at the same moment. It's hard to imagine, but this is how the new science is perceiving the reality that we live in. And how can that be? Well, it becomes pretty clear if you study the sacred geometry located in this one little image, how this can be. But to give you a direct example, because I really do believe in demonstrating things directly. This is a drawing by Leonardo da Vinci. And as you all know, the drawing part of it anyway. And by the way, Leonardo was totally involved in the Flower of Life. He was drawing the Flower of Life. He was drawing all the aspects of it. And this is how he was able to create the inventions such as the helicopter and all these kinds of things so long ago, because he understood the basic creation pattern. And anybody who understands this suddenly jumps from normal to genius immediately, because all things come into focus. There is no separation between any subject. You can take music or art or science or language or feelings or anything else, and they're all integrated through the same image pattern and the same dynamic proportions of sacred geometry. Here, Leonardo shows that if you put your hands straight out like this and your feet together, that there's a square that fits around your body. Science has shown that that square, if you measure this many people in the room, the difference between the height of your body and the width of your arms is only 1/10,000th of an inch. And that 1/10,000th of an inch is not an error. It is associated with the sequence, the mathematical sequence that forms it, which is the Fibonacci sequence. And that's another subject, but it is talked about in the book. And if you put your arms up like this, with your arms out like that, there's a sphere or a circle that will fit around your body with the exact center at your navel. The square will be centered at the base of your spine. And if you move that sphere, that center at the navel, the center of the sphere down to the center there, it forms a relationship that forms something called the golden mean ratio, which is the basis of all life everywhere. And by pure chance, you might say, some people would say it in this way, if you drew a circle inside this square, which is this blue area, and you drew a circle on another circle up here that is centered directly on the sphere that goes around the body, but the size of that sphere there, the gold one and the blue one, happen to be mathematically perfect to the size of the Earth and the Moon. It isn't off at all. There was a man named Kepler who thought that perhaps the planets all orbit in a certain way which is related to the 5 platonic solids, which all come out of the Flower of Life. And he tried to show how the orbits were not at random, but that they were set there very precisely according to these geometries. But he was wrong only because he didn't have correct information. In those days, they didn't really know exactly where the planets are. Now we know really where they are, and we know their maximum orbit, their minimum orbit, and their mean orbit. And there was a man named John Martineau who wrote a book called A Book of Coincidences, just pure coincidence, that shows that all of the orbits of all the planets and their relationship to the sun and the relationships of the orbits to each other, such as the relationship of the Earth's orbit to Venus, etc., or Mars to Uranus, etc., were all based on sacred geometry. Very, very precise sacred geometry with an accuracy that's incredible, it's undeniable. An accuracy that falls primarily in the range of about 99.9% perfect. Not an accident, it can't be. And all of its sacred geometry, and all of it is found in the Flower of Life, and all of those proportions of all the size of the planets and where they're located and moving around in the solar system can all be identified in and around your body, in the orbital fields that are around your body. NASA is already beginning to understand this now. And just a little side thing, if you notice the line that runs through the center of the Earth or the center of the body, and the line that runs up to the center of the Moon and comes down, and a line that goes from the center of the Moon to the center of the Earth, that shape, by a pure coincidence, just happens to be the exact shape of the Great Pyramid. That angle right there is 51 degrees, 51 minutes, 24 seconds. It's the precise shape of the Great Pyramid. And if you read Hermes, who wrote the Emerald Tablet, he says in there that the pyramid was created from the proportions of the Earth. This proves it. Not only is the macrocosm in and around your body, but so is the microcosm. And this is what NASA has also discovered. There is something in mitosis called the 8-cell division. When it goes from 1-cell division to 2 to 4 to 8. And when it hits 8 cells, it forms a pattern that looks like this. A little star tetrahedron. It's like a cube if you see it from this way, but if you turn it up on the edge, it's called a star tetrahedron. And this little pattern, the 8 cells are lined up on each one of these points of this little pattern, which comes directly out of the flower of life. And those 8 cells, when you look at it in the cube pattern, is right here. There's one of them, there's 2, 3, 4, and there's another set of them behind there, forming an exact pattern showing that the human body is actually defined in the original 8 cells when you were something so small you can't even see. And it's still there right now. And this is just one indication, though you could go on for hours if you wanted to, showing how the microcosm, small stuff, is completely located within you. And these 8 cells, by the way, are true with all life forms known in existence, which includes, though we don't have scientific proof it, of all the ETs that are out there also. It's all based on the same principles, no matter where they came from or who they are, or where they are on the earth, whether it's a tree or a dog or a cat or a human being. It's all, the 8-cell division is the same. It's exactly the same. And through time, as studying this over many, many, many years, we began to discover that this star tetrahedral field that the original 8 cells were located in is also around the body in an electromagnetic field. And it sits precisely in the arrangement that's around here, exactly 1 hand length above the head, exactly 1 hand length below the feet. And there is this interlocking field of these patterns around there. And connecting from the bottom, running through the very center, like entering in at the perineum between the legs, going up through the center of the body, exiting at the crown chakra, and connecting to it at the top, is a tube of energy that for each person is different, but if you take your thumb and your middle finger and put them together, that's how big around your tube is. And that tube has these little crystalline patterns that connect at the top and the bottom. And this allows access to life force energy, or prana, or chi, or ether, or tachyon energy, all the same thing. If it is accessed in a certain way. And there is a breathing pattern that the ancients knew that, and which requires certain thoughts and certain feelings that begin this field here spinning. And there's actually 3 of them there, and there begins to be a counter-rotating field of spinning motion that begins to spin around your body that forms something that the ancients called the Merkaba. And it looks basically like a flying saucer. There's a disc that comes out, and it's about 55 feet in diameter, depending on your height. And the whole energy field of all of your bodies are all contained within this 55-foot field, with the exception of some other little thing I can't get into right now. Too complex. And so I want you to remember, if you could, this breathing tube that runs through the body. It's absolutely straight. It's just like a fluorescent tube. Now, there's very few people or religions in the world who remember this. The Tibetans do. Tibetan Buddhists know exactly what I'm talking about, and they use this in their final steps of their initiation. This field of energy, if you were to look at it, happens to be identical to the infrared heat envelope around galactic bodies. This is the Sombrero Galaxy, and this is a disk that moves through. You can't see it real well on here, but if you were to look at it, it looks just like the traditional flying saucer. And the galaxy is also a living being that is alive, just like you and me. It has a very high level of consciousness. It has a completely integrated cellular level, which we call like humans or ETs, who are all working together in a single body, not Star Wars like we think. It's very much more like your own body, where everything, where the brain cells and the heart cells and the different kinds of appearing bodies are actually functioning together in a larger system for the greater good of all. And we have exactly the same shape around us if we breathe in a certain way. And the Merkaba is a vehicle. It's a vehicle that you use to get here in this planet, and when you die, it'll be the same vehicle that you use to get to wherever you're going after that. And it is a vehicle. And in the Torah, in the Israeli way of seeing things, the Merkaba was pronounced Merkaba, and when you translate Merkaba into English, it means the chariot or a vehicle. Much more than a vehicle. That's one of its aspects. It literally can become anything in existence. But that's another subject that we can't put forth here right now. Now, and that's the basic information that came out through the Flower of Life. So the information that's going to be presented here today will also be in Volume 2 of the Ancient Secret, the Flower of Life. And this is where we left everybody. We left them, we told them how to create it. We didn't say what it was or what to do with it. And that was what the workshop called the Earth Sky Workshop, which we've been doing for the last 3 years, is the information, what to do once you've now established this field around you, how to create it and what it can do and what it means for human life. Right up here is a little flying saucer, a craft. These are pictures from Billy Myers out of Switzerland, I think it is. Yeah. And they are, you know, most of us, as we have evolved over this thing with flying saucers and UFOs, there has been so much written about this. There has been so much said about it, and a lot of it's pretty outrageous. A lot of it's probably not true. A lot of it is true, but being veiled. And it's hard to know what is the truth anymore. The governments have definitely veiled this one from us. But there's something that took place a long time ago in the very, very, very beginning of this phenomena that was recorded. And the recording of this is important, though it has at this point been almost completely lost. You see, there were, in the very, very beginning of UFOs, as modern day ones, I'm not talking about ones that happened perhaps hundreds of years ago or thousands of years ago, but in this century, relative to the massive outbreaks of sightings, happened almost on a single day. It wasn't something that slowly sputtered in. It went wham, like that, bam, they were there. And it happened in Europe in 1946. In the summer of 1946, suddenly everybody in Europe was seeing these UFOs. Nowhere else in the world. The following summer, in the summer of 1947, in the United States, in a single day, bam, they were all over the United States. And the Air Force set up an investigation. It was called Project Sign, S-I-G-N. And it's interesting because they really didn't know who was doing this. They went through a lot of convulsions, basically trying to figure it out. Originally, they thought it was the Russians. They said, those Russians got a hold of the German stuff, and now they're doing this thing. And they did extensive research to find out if the Russians were really doing this, and they finally came up with the conclusion, well, it's not the Russians. Then the project turned in on themselves and said, probably us. We're doing this. We're secretly doing this. And they did extensive research to find out if there was any kind of secret programs going on around this, and came up with the conclusion, it's not us, it's not them, there is nobody else. Who the heck is doing this? Well, it went from Project Sign to Project Grudge to Project Blue Book over a few years. And the head of Project Grudge and the head of Project Blue Book, a man named Captain Edward Rupert, you see it down here, Ruppelt, R-U-P-P-E-L-T, who witnessed all of this stuff in the beginning days, wrote a book when he got out of the airport. He put it all down in this called the Report on the Unidentified Flying Objects. He wrote it all down. He wrote down everything that happened, the name and address of every person involved, their rank, where it was, how it happened, what they felt when they were going through these things, and the original experience of all of this, and the whole thing about you know, the thing where they were saying they were weather balloons and things like this. But many of them were weather balloons. I believe it was Motorola, can't remember for sure, who had this called the Skyhook Project, and they had these giant weather balloons that were huge, and they were silver, and then when they were in the sky, they were really bright. And they would get up into the jet streams and move at 300 miles an hour, and they would look like flying saucers or UFOs. But they mapped every one of those things. They knew exactly where they were, and so they could tell if somebody was seeing one of those or something else. And so he described what they went through, how they did everything. They even had their pilots say, you know, they could say, well, it was a reflection on their cockpit. It was what it was. So they'd have them tilt their planes to see if that's what it was. They had everything imaginable that they could think of, just like investigating a murder, on who was doing this. And it's real obvious when you read this that he was being sincere in putting this out. It's interesting. Soon after he wrote this, he died at 39 years old and disappeared because they didn't want this out, and that book just disappeared. No one talks about it anymore. But it's still available out there if you look, if you find for it. There's still a few copies running around. And the first thing that's so important to realize, in the original sightings from 1946 through 1952, which is when he actually quit this in here, the first 5 years of all of this in there, all the sightings, almost without exception, were over military bases. All over the world. They weren't from you and I. They weren't from cities or, you know, hippies sitting on the corner saying, there goes one. This was from very special people. I mean, they were people who had high credentials and PhDs and everything else who worked for the military. They were pilots with F-16s and F-18s, hundreds of them. There were 44,000 sightings in the United States alone in those 5 years. 44,000 sightings, according to this book. And they only received to this project, of the Project Blue Book, a little over 10%, about 4,400 of them. And they investigated those sightings like crazy. And if there was anything in one of the sightings that could possibly be a mistake, maybe it was a weather balloon, or maybe it was a reflection, or maybe it was an asteroid, or maybe it was just another plane or something else like that, they threw it out. If it was even the remote chance that it was wrong, but they still came up with just slightly under 800 sightings that there was absolutely no doubt whatsoever that these things were true UFOs. These were sightings with F-18 airplanes falling right behind them, with people watching them in there, with people on the ground watching them go by, and with the radars tracking them at the same time. And so it's real clear, if you get this original writing, that this was not some phony baloney thing that was going on. This was a very real phenomenon. And all the kinds of things that we hear nowadays, the kinds of stuff where, like, you see them going really fast and making a 90-degree turn and disappearing, and all these kinds of things, they're all written up in this book here. They all witnessed this right in the very, very beginning. They identified all the shapes that we're used to. Flying saucer shape, which was the main one, the long cigar shape, the delta wing ones, triangular shaped ships. They were all identified there. They even talked about how, and all fully recorded through the Air Force, where an F-16 or F-18 would be following one of these things, and they would lock on with their radar, and the moment they did, the thing would shoot ahead at an unbelievable speed and just 10 miles ahead instantly, like this. And then it would let it catch up with them again. But the moment it locked on radar, shoot ahead. But they witnessed things that were impossible. The ship would disappear and reappear directly behind the F-16. They'd just gone, and they'd be right behind them. And this was talked about in the beginning, in the first 5 years, before any of this stuff emerged out in the world. And the most interesting one, which they talk about in here, is the spheres of light. Two kinds. These big balls of burning light that are look like they're on fire, which we're still seeing in the world, all over the world. And these balls of light that are moving around, usually in sets of 3 or 4, and the spheres of light, which are these translucent, brilliant lights. And I've seen these myself. And that are usually only about this big, they're about this big, maybe this big, that they have tracked with, they've photographed, they've done everything else with them, but they had no idea what they were. They didn't fit into anything. The end result of this book, after 5 years and after he just published this thing, and at that time it was too early for the government to realize that you can't do these things. The end result is that he believes that there's only one answer left, because they have checked every known possibility in existence on this planet, and the only answer left is that they're from another planet. He didn't have the concepts or ideas of other dimensions and other levels of existence in those ways. So his own thing is that they had to be interplanetary. And so I believe, and I think if you read this book, you'll believe it too, that they're here. They really are here. The answer is why. And I think you might find the real reason that brought them in had to do with World War II. Had to do with something we call the atomic bomb. And when we exploded that bomb, first time, we broke galactic law. You are not to do fission reactions, but only fusion reactions. Fission is splitting matter apart. Fusion is putting it together. All the stars in the hot sky are fusion, bringing matter together. And fission is against galactic law. And that's why they came here initially. That's what brought them. And it's not just one or two, by the way. It's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cultures that are here, observing us in many levels and watching what we're doing and interacting with us on all kinds of levels. But I'm not going to go into it that deeper. There's a lot more of it in the book itself in terms of the graves and the abductions and cattle mutilation and all the various other kinds of things that have been going on. But I just want to put this out to say that I believe this is really a real situation, not a fantasy one. And we need to look at this one in conjunction with the other 4, that you begin to see that a higher consciousness is here on Earth. A very high consciousness is here on Earth. And our lives are going to be altered forever. And that is occurring at this very minute as we sit in this room. And this is that slide I wanted to show you, I think. You see these other ships of Billy Myers, especially this one here. Look at the shape of this, that dome-shaped thing that comes like that. Well, the kings of England were buried in chambers that look like this. And they were buried right in the center where the cockpit would be, sort of. There's another one back up sitting over there. They look like ships that have landed on the ground. Now, where do you think they got that image? Maybe they saw it. Just maybe. I'm using this image also because the next phenomenon I want to talk about, well, first of all, one second. That last phenomenon is now 52 years old. Just to finish this last one up, of the UFOs. They've been here for 52 years. And the sightings are not dropping, but they are increasing more and more and more. In fact, there's even a thing, I believe it was on ABC recently, remarking about the worldwide sightings are increasing, not dropping. And so that's been around for 52 years. This next one I want to talk about has been around for 27 years. And this has to do with the crop circle. And this is a new one. Now, these ones I'm about to show you are 1998. They're last year's crop circles. There are other ones besides these ones, but I'm just going to give you a few examples of them. And this is another thing that the governments of the world said, it's just a Doug and Dave. They're out there. They're out there making these things, drinking their beer and having a good old time. And I don't know, guys. There are a lot of fakes. There's no doubt about it. They have caught people making these things, and there are fakes that are out there. But what you've got to know is that it's absolutely scientifically easy to prove a real crop circle from a fake. All you have to do is read the book of Colin Andrews, The Undeniable Evidence. In the book, The Undeniable Evidence by Colin Andrews, they have proof, because what happens is a true crop circle, and this is a true one here, they are not pushed down or stepped on or laid in place. They are grown in place. The crops themselves grow into that circle. Nobody does it. And there's a little 45-degree angle on the crop that they have analyzed, which is a biological unique situation that no one has ever seen before. And they always have these little 45-degree, like a little knot that goes on there. The crops are still alive. They're not dead. If you take a living crop circle, it will stay that way just until the crops actually do die. Whereas if it's a fake one, after a few days, everything turns brown and it dies. Of course, when you get everybody in there walking all over them, they start killing it. You know, especially if you get hundreds and hundreds of people like they sometimes do. But initially, it's very clear. And the precision of these things is amazing. I mean, they're within just like almost perfect circles. They're not sort of round or kind of round. They're really round. And they've also, if you go into directly into them, which it's hard to, this one was not this way, but it was the only slide. I was there in this one here. This was an interesting one. But this slide doesn't actually show this, but in many of them you'll see that the crops are woven. They're woven like a hair braid. And you'll find, and I've found as many as 5 layers of weaving, where it goes weaving one way, then the other way, then the other way, then the other way, then the other way. And there's this amazing pattern. When you consider that every crop circle ever found in the world was created between sunset and sunrise, always at night, and always during that time, the complexity of the crop circles right now, that it would take an army of people to be able to create these patterns in the world. When you look at these things, they are extremely complex, and each one of these circles is whirling around in a different way. And you can go in there with compasses, and you go into one, and the compass will wildly spin in one direction. You step over on the other side, and it wildly spins in the other direction. What's doing that? They found crop circles are highly radioactive, too. They found crop circles with powder in them. They don't even know what the heck it is. They've never seen it before. And that's a person right there, by the way, that little tiny white thing right there. And it's like, what, 60... I guess this one it must be like 300 feet across or something. And you can see this, and here's one, and here, this is Silbury Hill? That's not how you say it, is it? Silbury Hill, yeah. This is a man-made mountain, the largest one in Europe. It's huge. And this is one of the crop circles. It almost has the same base. This is different than the one you just saw, by the way. It's a different one. But they're massive, they're huge, and they're extremely complex. Now, this one you're probably familiar with. So it's interesting that the ones in 1998 are almost all patterns that come out of the Flower of Life. And it looks like whoever's doing it just went to a Flower of Life class or something. And they're almost always discovered by sacred sites. usually in conjunction with a sacred site somewhere in the world. And at any rate, I would really like to go into this more, into what all of this is, but I suggest that you study this very carefully. There are somewhere around 10,000 crop circles are now have occurred, and they are not just in England, they're all over the world. There are little tiny islands out in the middle of nowhere. The United States gets a little over 200 crop circles a year, though our government erases them as fast as possible and doesn't want you to know about it, but they're here. I've seen crop circles in Holland. One year they had 136 there last year, and one of them was done in crusted snow, and it was an incredible complex of circles, of concentric rings and circles. Some of the circles were only 3/4 of an inch wide, half an inch wide, and they were 300 or 400 feet across with absolute perfection. And I can say one thing for sure: whoever did that crop circle or snow circle did not walk on the earth. They had to hover. For sure. And I found a crop circle in Canada where it was done with trees. With the trees made a 45-degree angle and laid down on the ground. So I know nobody went around stamping those trees down. I suggest you investigate this more carefully, of what this is and what it really means. I do have a video out called The Story of England, which goes into this in great detail of what we believe is really going on and who it is and how they're doing this. And one last little thing, there's a video out of these two spheres of light that go around and forms a crop circle in a matter of seconds. How many have seen that video? It's not real. It's a fake. And unfortunately it is. But that is the idea that many people have seen these spheres of light come in and the crop circles form in a matter of absolute seconds, 5, 6 seconds, it's there. But the crop circle was formed by computer images, and they made one mistake. They gave the whole story of when it happened, and the sun angle was not aligned up with that time that they said it happened by 5 hours. And so they lied. And unfortunately, there's a lot of lying going on around this kind of stuff, but there's also a lot of truth hidden in it. And so I recommend that you check it out and find out what it really means. That's been going on for 27 years. It is not getting slowing down whatsoever, and in fact, it's becoming more and more intense and more complex. And they have investigated these things with mathematically. This one's very interesting, the 13 circles forming a tube torus, which is one of the patterns used in the Flower of Life also. But when they've taken these crop circles and they've very carefully analyzed them, this was a crop circle, they've come up with very complex mathematical information that is making it very clear that whoever is doing this is brilliant. In fact, this one here really rocked the world. This is a drawing of one, this very complex one. There's a bend in this line here that precisely and mathematically delineates that this is speaking about hyperdimensional space. And we are just barely able to understand the mathematics of what they're talking about, whoever it is. Maybe it's Doug and Dave, but those guys are really brilliant. Because can you imagine making a crop circle like this over in the dark overnight with two people? It's about 500 feet across with this kind of precision, and to have this kind of knowledge in there? I don't think so. And I'm just stating, look at this more carefully and find out what it is and what they're talking about and why are they doing it, whoever it is. And if you want to see the story of England, I'll give you my impression of who I think it is. Now I'm going to talk about the third phenomena that's occurring, and this one is relatively new. It's only been out for 5 years or so. And probably by now, most of you have heard about this one. And there's a raging controversy over this, whether it's true or not true. And I'm going to just give you my 2 cents on all of this, of whether it's true or not true. But if it is true, it is a further indication that there is something going on this world of a level that no one has ever seen before. There's a book called The Bible Code, written by Michael Dresden. How many people have heard of this? That was about a third. That's a higher level. I've been checking audiences, and it was about 10%, now 15, 20, going up. It's on the New York bestseller list. What are they talking about? They discovered a long time ago in the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Bible. Well, let me put it another way. In the Torah, in 6 different places, it's written that there's a secret book hidden inside the Bible. And that book would not be opened up until the end of time. States it 6 times. And about 50 years ago, there was a rabbi in Israel, or I don't know if he was in Israel. I don't know if was Israel even there 50 years ago? Somewhere. Who was studying the Torah and discovered that if you took every 50th letter starting from the first letter of the Torah, in each of the 5 books, that something happened. In the first 2 books of the Torah, Genesis and the next one, I don't remember the names of them all, it wrote the word Torah. You took every 50th letter. And then if you went through book 4 and 5, it did the same thing, only it wrote the word Torah backwards. And then if you took the middle book in the center, so you have a reflection toward the center, it wrote the word, the name of God. And that person believed that there was a code in the Bible that based on the spacing of letters. And he tried and tried and tried, but it was way too complex because we had to wait until there were computers. And then there was a man named Dr. Eli Ritz at the Hebrew University who decided, well, this is a very simple program, let's just do it. And they made the software program, plugged it in, and started putting words in there to see if there was any kind of truth to any of this. And it became amazing, actually. One of the things they did at one point, and it depends if you talk to this book, Michael Dresden, or the newer one that just came out called Cracking the Bible Code by Jeffrey Fatnover. One of the things they did is they put the names of rabbis into the Bible code to see if they were written in there. And Michael said it was 30-something, but this person who was closer to it all said it was more like 60. So they put somewhere between 30 and 60 people's names. And they knew everything about these rabbis because they were dead. They knew when they were born, what they did in their lives and everything. And they plugged their names in, which completely rearranges the Bible, the 300,000 plus letters of the Torah, into a new matrix, which is kind of the way, I'm going to go back to this other one. Down here you can see all the letters. I don't know if you can see it, but they're in rows. And it forms names kind of like in a crossword puzzle that run across like this or at diagonals. And he put their names in there, and bang, there were their names, exactly as they were spelled. And off to the left was the exact day they were born and the exact place they were born. And on the other side was the exact day they died and the exact place they died. And it's true of all 60 of them. They now can't find a single person in the world that's not in the Bible, which is including you. Your name's written in there, when you were born and when you will die, and everything about your life. It's all written in there. It's all determined. And not just people, but everything. And even things that are not on the surface of the earth. Like the comet that went in and hit Jupiter a few years ago. All that was written in the Bible and recorded in there. And it goes on and on and on. Now, obviously, this is a big deal if it's true. I mean, it means that the future is already written into the Bible. And then the big question over what does free will mean? And if it's already there, then what the heck? Let's go have a party. What does that mean? And so a big question started emerging. Well, first of all, the mathematicians of the world said, no way. This can't be true. This has just got to be BS. And so Yale and Harvard set out with all of their mathematical brilliance to prove that this was a lie and wasn't true. And they created their own software program. And they did everything they could to set up a pattern to prove that this was a lie. And all they ended up doing was proving it was true. And then the Pentagon also got in the picture, and the code department of the Pentagon, because this is just really a code, got up and set up, and they put everything that the United States intelligence had on this to see if this was true or not, and they also came up with the conclusion that this is true. They don't know what it means, but it's a fact that it's there. And you can run this computer code in any other book known in existence, even the rest of the Bible, and it won't work. It only works in the first 5 books, which is called the Torah. And now, there's something that I would like to say about this. First of all, it's all based on what's called statistics. And I'll give an example. If you were walking through the forest and you saw a rock sitting beside the little path that you're walking, you wouldn't think anything of it. It's just a rock, and you keep going. But if you saw another rock balanced on top of that rock, you might stop for a second, but it wouldn't slow you down too long. You just keep right on going. But if you saw a rock with another rock on it, with another rock on top of that, with another one on top of that, another one, another one, another one, oh, we have a little tiny rock, wait a minute. You'd stop, and in your mind, you would say, some human being did that. You wouldn't even consider that it happened by accident or by nature did it. The odds would be of that just occurring like that would just be too outrageous. And that's the key, the odds. And so that's how the mathematicians are trying to prove all these things. Well, they discovered that, first of all, in statistical mathematics, if something occurs at an odds of 1 to 1,000, it's not considered just a chance, per chance. It's considered almost for sure human done or consciously done, not just at random. But the odds that they're finding in the Bible code are 1 to 1,000,000 to 1 to 10 million. The odds are so high that it's just right off the scale of possibilities of saying this is true or not true. But still, you've got many, many people out there going, oh, it can't be. They can't accept the possibility that maybe the future was already known. There's another thing I would like to talk about this. I have very little time to talk about it, so I'm going to have to go kind of quickly. And many of you will not know what I'm talking about. But for any of you who have read the Flower of Life book, or for you people who have been through the Flower of Life, you'll remember that in the story of the history of Atlantis, we talked about how 2 new ET races merged with our evolutionary pattern during that time. And one of them was the Martians, which we spent a long time talking about, and how they came here against our will and they're still here, and they're still manipulating through the secret government and the world powers. But that they came from the past. This is the key, that they came from almost 1 million years in the past, coming up to about 60 or 70,000 years ago in our past, and merged with us then. And in terms of what they were doing, that's not too important right now, because what I'm really interested in is the second race, which we only, in the Flower of Life, gave a little passing. We only talked about for a moment. We referred it to like a child who had missed grade 5 and had to do the grade over again. They had misunderstood something, and they had to come here to repeat a grade. And that was a great asset to us, because they brought knowledge, a higher knowledge that we didn't have before, the knowledge of the hierarchy and the angels and many things that we didn't even know existed at that time, because it was the next grade that we were about to do. And so we kind of didn't say much about it. And when this came up here, I sat in meditation, and the angels came in and said, and gave me an idea of what, or an explanation of what was going on. I will give it to you. You can accept it or throw it away or say it's crazy, but we'll see. They say that the Hebrews are coming from a very distant time in the future, and that they had created a life that was horrible, It was absolutely horrible because they misunderstood something. And the end result was that they were living a life that nobody wants to even talk about. It was horrible. And so at that moment, in a long time in the future, they sat down and they wrote the Torah very carefully from a very high level of consciousness. And they wrote it down, and in the Torah, they were instructed to never change a letter, not one, which is still the way it is with the Hebrews. They're not allowed to change even one letter because it breaks the computer code and it won't work. And then in there, they did something. They did something very unique. And now I'm going to talk about something else for just a second and come back to this. Last year, as everybody has been following this, Pentagon and everyone else and the world governments and everything, they've all been following this because it's predicting the future exactly to the moment. Something didn't happen. One thing did not occur last year. And that was the Bible, the Torah said that Jerusalem was going to be blown up by an atomic bomb. And it said who was going to do it, by name, how they were going to do it, exactly where, and what day, and the moment when it was going to happen. And it didn't happen. And the whole world went back to the computer code again and ran it back up again and expanded out the matrix to see, because this is the first time they ever saw anything not occurring exactly as was in there. And when they did, up in the top right-hand corner was the word delayed. And underneath that was a statement that they've never seen before. It said, will you change this? Will you change this? What the angel said was, when they wrote the Torah in the future a long time ago, they programmed into very specific places where the changes had to happen so that they did not end up where they were in this horrible place. And that was the first one that came up last year. And I was in communication with the Hebrew University through email for a while. They were telling me they were supporting this work and everything. And I told them what I'm about to tell you, and I haven't heard from them since. And but I told them they could prove if this was true or not. It's very easy. First of all, there's already proof out there that that this existed for a very, very long time. The common belief is that Moses got the Torah from God on Mount Sinai in the year approximately 1250 BC. That's what we've all been told. But that is true, and I'm sure that God gave Moses the copy. But it isn't the first time it was on Earth. Because if you read the 12th planet by Zacharias Sitchin, you'll see that when they unfolded, when they found the ancient Sumerian cities and they brought out the clay tablets of the ancient records of the Sumerians, there was the first book of Genesis written word for word as it is already. So how did they get that? I mean, if it was given in 1250 BC, how did they get it in 3000 BC, or actually 4000 BC? And it's because they had brought it back to Atlantis, and the Sumerians were simply writing down their history. And so you can prove that it existed before that time. Absolutely. It's a matter of science now. It's not a matter of debate. It's real. And but you can also prove the idea that it's coming from the future, because if this is predicting the future, all you got to do is start running the computer ahead in time, and it's going to keep going and keep going and keep going, but you're going to come to a place where it doesn't work anymore, because that's the moment when the Torah was created. It will only have the past. And you see, they wrote the past into the Torah, their past, which was known. But they didn't just write the little bits of like a person's life or things like that. I believe that you will eventually find that what's in there is the Akashic records, right down to every quiver of every leaf, to the very words I'm speaking, to absolutely every single thing. And what they're opening up right now is just the index. That's all it is. You get the person's name, the basic things in their life, their birth and their death, but There's another way of going beneath it using sacred geometry, three-dimensional and hyperdimensional space, that you can bring out from there every single tiny itty-bitty detail of even a bug walking across the stage will be completely written out there. And if you don't think that's possible, study sacred geometry and how information can be put in there. You can show how that infinite amount of knowledge, this infinite of the entire universe and everything that's going on there, can be put into a little tiny space if you know what sacred geometry really is. And so, is it real? So I'm going to let you contemplate that one for a while, and I wish I had time to go into depth over this, because, which will be in the book, because there are things going on today that, when put in context of this, you really begin to understand. And this little thing about will you change this is occurring more often now. Because what happened in the Israelis got together and they did a thing which changed us and put us on a parallel reality. And that's why the bomb didn't happen. But there's got to be many other changes in the future. And it's not just the Israelis. Interesting enough, the second change took place with the Germans, which they had in their legends. That it was written down that they caused World War II, but they would stop World War III. And we don't know it, but we almost went into World War III over Kosovo. By April 8th, we were to be in Armageddon, and we're not there. At any rate, there are huge things going on, hidden underneath the scenes. And we will succeed. There's absolutely no doubt. We will succeed in this. But it is a tremendous thing that is going on. I would carefully watch this. And you know what? You can even buy the computer code and put it into your computer, and you can find out what's going to happen in your future or anyone else. You know, we can convert it into English for you if you want. It's only like $35 or something like that. Just go on the internet, check out the Bible code. You can buy it, put it in your thing, and it's a very simple code. And begin to check it. Find out, go a few days in the future and see if it isn't mapping exactly what's happening in your life in the future. You'll find it's true. You can do it. You don't have to sit there. You can empower yourself in this way. The angel talked about this thing in Kosovo. They came to me. I was in Germany, and they came to me before it happened, before it was in the newspaper or anything. And they told me that the workshop that I was about to give in Germany was going to be the most important workshop I've ever given in my life, ever. And I'd just given one in Switzerland. I was going, well, in my own mind, I'm going, well, what's so important about this one? And they then began to tell me that there was a war that was going to happen, and it would be announced in the world in 2 days. And that it would eventually end up in Armageddon on April 8th if we did not change it. And the sequence of events and all of that were incredible. They were absolutely amazing what happened in all of that and how the Germans responded to it. They knew exactly what we were talking about. They knew, and they went into a meditation. It was about 100 people. And went into a meditation, and they just merged. They just melted and became deep. I mean, they knew that they were either going to change this or they were going to end up in another situation almost identical to World War II that they caused. A situation almost the same. And it was very similar in many ways. It was approaching that. And for 2 hours, I mean, they just went into the center of the earth and they were gone. And when they came back out, we didn't know. I mean, I was basically holding my breath to see what would happen on April 8th. And then right after that, the war starts and all the things begin to emerge. And but by that date of the 8th, everything began to happen. And there were things in this war that they told me that has not emerged. And I don't even know if I should say it. I don't know if it's even good to put. It's so horrible. Yugoslavia was connected to Iraq, and this was a joint effort between them. And there was a plan And the plan had been set up from the original war. Do you remember the original war with Iraq, where we had them to rights and all of a sudden we just let them go? Why did we do that? Because Iraq had planted anthrax in Jerusalem. And they were going to basically commit suicide to destroy the entire city. And we had to back away. That's why we backed away. And so we were trying to get their biological, chemical, and nuclear facilities, knowing that we were trying to stop this. In the meantime, they've been spreading anthrax throughout the world. And they've got these little machines that are seen in every major city in the United States. That all he has to do is dial a telephone call and sell your phone that releases this in the city. And with a single phone call, he can destroy the whole United States. But he's not doing it. Why? It's because of the Quran. And because of the Quran and the nature of the Muslim religion, he can't do this unless he gets the rest of the Muslim countries to declare jihad or holy war. Otherwise, he would be destroyed himself from his way of seeing this. He can't do it. And so the whole thing was to get the world so uptight about what was going on in Kosovo, and especially the Arab world, and it was getting that way. In Turkey, they were doing that just as it began. They had blown up 35 bombs, killing only Germans and Americans. And the whole thing was beginning, and they were waiting for the Muslims to just come together and get so uptight that they just called for jihad, and that was the plan. But it didn't happen. Instead, it wrapped around in a different way, and none of it occurred. And I believe it occurred because of what the Germans did. Only history will be able to tell this, but you could actually put your little computer program in there and find out what was changed and how. Because it's interesting enough, it is written, the changes are written. Time is spherical. We live in a polarized world where we see everything as black or white. It's actually in the three. We see everything as good or bad or in the middle, as up and down or in the middle, hot or cold or warm, male and female or child, the sun and the moon and the earth. Everything is broken into three. Our time is past, present, and future. Our space is the XYZ axis. Everything that we do in all the ways we see is in a triangular motion. And it's just one way of perceiving the one reality. And we are about to emerge into another way of perceiving the reality, a lot simpler and easier to understand and perceive, a way that is actually beginning to take place right now. But we're going to have to let this unfold a little bit more today before we can see. So in this first hour and a half, we've talked about the first three phenomena: the UFOs, crop circles, and the Bible code that is emerging at this time. All of these are indications that a higher level of consciousness is here. The fourth phenomena that we're going to talk about now is a very simple thing. It's just water. And, how can water be a phenomenon? I mean, we drink it every day. It's a very normal, everyday thing. So what? Well, first of all, in Genesis, again, in the very, very, very first sentence of the Bible, it talks about the Spirit of God moving across the face of the waters. What does that mean? And we live on a planet that is almost all water. So we're basically a water planet. Our bodies are made out of water. We're almost all water. Obviously, something's really important here. And what was this whole thing with Jesus, that we had baptism into water? What was that all about? What does it really mean? Well, geometrically, water is something called an icosahedron. This was the thoughts and beliefs of all the ancient ones from Egypt all the way up through Pythagoras and Plato. and up to even modern day alchemists, that water has a form or a shape. It's a little polyhedron. It's different than this one that has 20 triangles on it. It's called an icosahedron. And there is another shape that has to do with life force energy itself, which again I defined as prana, which is a Hindu term, or chi, which is a Chinese term, or ether, which is the ancient alchemist point of view, or tachyon, which is a more modern point of view coming out. They're all the same exact thing. There's no difference. They're life force energy itself, and it has a shape. And its shape is something called a pentagonal dodecahedron. It has 12 pentagons put together to form itself. Both of them are two of 5 very special shapes called the platonic solids. And when you look at something that is equally related, though it doesn't seem to be, DNA molecule, what does the DNA molecule got to do with these two forms? The DNA molecule is made up of nothing but water and prana. That's all it is. Icosahedron, dodecahedron. It's a reciprocal relationship that forms the double helical strand, at least mathematically and geometrically, it forms it. And so the very essence of life, of how life programs itself, seems to be connected with water and prana, or life force energy. In Georgia, about roughly 10 years ago, they discovered that in the human body, whenever there is an illness or disease, it is always surrounded by what's called unstructured water. And whenever there is a healthy cell, it is always surrounded by structured water. What's the difference? 1 electron. 1 electron is the only difference. The unstructured water has its electron, for one reason or another, has been stripped off, and it's the only difference between those two kinds of water. And we are living in a society that has done something that perhaps it's not fully understanding. We have put water through high-pressure pipes. Water moving through high-pressure pipes strips off the outer electrons and turns it into unstructured water. And so all the water that you're drinking that comes out of your faucet, if you drink that, is unstructured water associated with disease. Many people, when they discovered this, people like Patrick Flanagan and Walter Baumgartner and many of the water experts around the world began to realize, well, we've got to come back with structured water. So they began to create all these different ways of doing it. And it's amazing how many ways you can structure water. And the easiest, simplest, most rapid way is just with a magnet. Water passes through a certain kind of magnet, bam, it structures it. And that was, I believe it was Patrick Flanagan who figured that one out, but I'm not sure. And so you can take like a swimming pool, if you put a hexagonal magnet on it and run it through there, and you don't have to, if you do it in the right way, you do it properly, you don't even need to use anything in there because it will keep it fully structured, and you don't end up with all the bacteria, and it won't rip off the electrons. In other words, if you have unstructured water, so in your hot tub, you've got a piece of metal that's in the, like a handle halfway in the water, you'll start noticing that there's pits all over the handle because the water wants that outer electron, and so it takes it from the metal and pits the metal. Literally takes the electron from the metal and puts it around itself because that's what it wants. It wants to be associated with life. Water running through a river or in the lake naturally is structured. In fact, you can take unstructured water and run it over rocks over about 20 feet, and falling in the logarithmic spirals structures the water. You can take unstructured water in a jar and just go back and forth about 20, 30 times, and just the flowing back and forth will structure the water, which is the simplest, easiest, most healthiest way to do it. You don't have anything else around. And so there's been a huge debate and scientific awakening around water in the last 10 years or so, and what it all means. In Japan, about 15 years ago, they discovered a brand new water. Never even heard about, never even knew it existed. And they discovered that when a baby is born, and it doesn't matter if it's human or a dog or cat or anything else, when a baby is born, its body is filled with a certain kind of water that's different than any other kind of water. And this water is now being called clustered water. If you look at it under a microscope, it looks like snowflakes, six-sided little patterns. And the baby's body, though it was born with this clustered water, after a short time, it drops it and it goes into a structured form. I'm not exactly sure how long that takes or when that takes. I don't know that little bit of information. And this clustered water they're finding is really extraordinary if you drink it. And there are people who sell this. There's all kinds of ways of getting it now. And it's becoming a big deal out in the world. I've been doing this myself to see what it is. It's amazing. It completely changes things in your body, but it's very slow. But if you drink it for 2 or 3 months, you begin to realize that there's something definitely changing within you. That's this water that I've been drinking right here, right now. It's clustered water. And it's a good thing. It appears to be a very, very good thing. The Japanese are way into it more than the Americans are. We're just becoming aware of it, of what it does. In Chile and Japan and a few other places, I believe Russia also, they've discovered something else, that you can add one more electron to the water and call it ionized water, and that it has amazing properties, truly, truly amazing properties. And it does things that no one's ever seen before. And that research is continuing on all over the world right now. But recently, actually, it was 14 years ago, in Turkey, there was a man there named Ayhan Dayak, who is a Sufi master, who has created in some form or fashion, which he will not say exactly how he's doing this, a water that no one has ever seen before, and which is very, very difficult to explain. The difference in this water is it has 3 extra electrons. And this water is being called super ionized water. This water is going to change the world beyond anybody's imagination. We were never going to be the same when this water goes out. It's going to just sweep the world and do things that no one can you wouldn't even believe it. In fact, the scientists that have read the data don't believe it. They just don't believe it. Even when they see it with their eyes, they don't believe it, with what I'm about to tell you. And, but it's here. It's emerged into the world. What is this thing about electrons? Why is it so important? Well, it appears as though electricity and prana are related. There definitely appears to be a relationship between the two. It was Andrew Cross in 1837 who first discovered something that has been duplicated since then by people like Wilhelm Reich and even more in modern day times, that appears to be almost like a miracle. You see, for a long time, we thought that life began in pools of water with nucleic acids and proteins that merged together and did all these kinds of things, right? This is the belief. It's no longer the belief in modern day science right now. They don't believe that anymore. They believe one thing, that it only takes 2 elements to come together to make life: water and electricity, period. It's all that's necessary, nothing else. No molecules, no nothing else. And Andrew Cross in 1937 did an experiment. He put water into a container and he put a crystal in the water, and he ran a low voltage electricity through the water. He left it there for a very, very long time because initially nothing happens. A week went by, nothing, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. somewhere around a month or two, it takes a long time, this phenomenon begins to happen. And you can repeat this if you're scientifically inclined. Etched onto the side of the crystal, it appeared to be that somebody etched a bug on there with 8 little legs and like that appeared to be etched on. And there were several of them all over it. And then as time went on, another several weeks went by, the bug became a relief rather than just etched on. It became a relief out. And then after a while, the bug starts crawling around the crystal. And a little while later, the bug starts swimming through the water. And a little while later, it goes to the surface and flies away. They have scientifically witnessed this. I don't know. And look, this article actually was just recently rewritten in Nexus magazine last month, so you can go in there and read that information. But it's just a bug. It's just a little bug with 8 little legs, and they don't know if it's the only one. There may be other things, but life came out of this water, and they can use not just crystals too. They can use rocks, from what I understand, stones. But life appeared out of this solution with nothing but water and electricity and a piece of matter inside of it. And what we're now beginning to realize is that electricity and water appears to be the key to life itself. And so in Turkey, they made this water that is super ionized, and it has 3 extra electrons. Well, you say, well, so what? 3 extra electrons. Well, the so what is that if you have a glass, and this is the water right here, by the way, but it's being diluted, this water right here. If you took this in its what's called the mother formula in its pure form, right as it's created, before it's diluted with other water, you could take a lamp, take the plug, stick it in it, and it'll light the lamp up brighter than if you put it in the wall. And it'll do it for a very, 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 very long time. It's literally just pure liquid electrons flowing through this water. And so about 7 months ago, I got going further back, in Germany, last year, I gave a talk on the environmental cleaning work that we've been doing around the world. And I don't know what I said there, but I guess I inspired the people from Turkey that were sitting in there, and they decided that they wanted to show me what they were doing. And they tried to get me for months and months and months and months, but I was so busy, I just couldn't do it. It was just impossible. So they said they were going to send someone over to Florida to give a demonstration where I please show up, but I couldn't. I don't remember what it was, but I couldn't. So I sent someone that I work with, a man named Slim Sperling. And I know Slim, and I know he's honest and pure, and I know whatever he saw, I could rely on. So Slim went to see this demonstration. And Slim, for those of you who know him, I always call him, he's sort of like the cowboy Merlin. He's with cowboy clothes with long beard, and he's amazing with his energy and prana. He can heal people, and he's incredible with what he can do. And he's very slow in talking. He's got a kind of a little OB drawl, and he talks that. And he calls me up the first day, and he was talking rather fast. Okay, and he goes, yeah, this is really pretty good stuff, really. It's not slow yet now. And the next day he calls me up, and he's so excited he couldn't even talk. He says, I'm so high, I can never come down. He's going on and on. Actually, it was something like, I'm higher than a hog, something or other. And I go, what is going on over there? Because he says, you can't believe what's going on here. And so he told me I really needed to see this. So relying on that, the Air Force a long time ago, which used to try to stop everything I was doing. I mean, they really tried to stop me, along with the CIA and the FBI, but they don't anymore, thank God. And they were finally assigned someone to me. So, and that person is involved in the Air Force's EPA. And I told him, I said, I'd like you to set up something in Washington, D.C. To do this. Well, they really set it up. They brought in the FBI, the CIA, the United States Air Force, and 15 major agencies of the government with their head scientists there. I mean, these are really famous people that were in that room, and me. And this guy, Orhan Beyrak, who is the Turkish man, who's really just like a child. He's a very innocent person, and he's not really a scientist, but he was there. And we witnessed chemical reactions that are considered by all known chemists in the world as being absolutely and totally, completely and utterly impossible. But it happened over and over and over again. The first thing they did is they took, the government took 2 big beakers of polluted water. One of them looked like it came out of a cesspool. It was brown, it smelled like human waste, and there was stuff floating in it, and it was horrible. And the other one looked like they took it out of some chemistry lab. It was sort of yellowish green and sort of glowed. And smelled of gasoline. And I didn't know what either one of them. And I put them there high on the thing, and he says, I can make this happen instantly within 3 seconds, but I'm going to do it in a different way, because when we clean up a lake or a river, we have to spray it on, and it slowly comes down. You can't mix it up. So he laid a little tiny bit of water on the surface of each of those 2 things, and then he went back over to show something else. The first thing he showed us was he took a can of motor oil, opened it up, fresh one, poured it into a little beaker about that much, took 3 or 4 drops of this water, put it in, shook it up, and in that long, the oil no longer exists on planet Earth. It completely converted the oil into proteins and amino acids and fatty acids, which is fish food. And it did it instantly at room temperature. And this is pretty amazing. And what's really amazing to me about this is the analogy of what this really means. Oil is the end of life. Millions and millions and millions of years of plant life and human life and growth life and animal life all being swished down into the stuff we call oil. And this water comes in contact with it, and matter instantly converts it into the beginning of life, the proteins and amino acids. It goes from black to white. The stuff is a white substance. And the old one no longer exists, just by coming in contact with this water. I then watched for 5 hours one chemical reaction after another that were impossible. But what began to emerge very subtly at first, and then very more and more obvious, is the water was conscious and aware on a very high level of existence. It would go into a reaction, and it would know exactly what to do, and it didn't care what the rules were. It would convert it to whatever was good for life, period. And it would always leave the solution back at 7.0 pH, no matter where it started. Neutral. No matter where it started, and no matter what the reaction was or what the chemistry was for. It always knew exactly what to do, and it would go into one reaction with oil and do that, but in another situation, it would go into oil and do something entirely different. But we gave a demonstration to 15 major media, newspapers and television stations in California recently. And when the reporters saw it doing one thing and then doing something totally different in the same solution later, this one guy stood up and goes, Mr. Beyrak, it seems like that's conscious. I mean, how can it do this in one thing and do this in another one when it seems to know what it's doing? And for the first time, Orhan says, he says, it is. And all the whole audience stood up and clapped. They were so excited because they realized that this is something that is as extraordinary as the Bible code, where the future is being known, it appears as though God is coming into this. I can't tell you everything right now, but I'll try. But it appears as though God is coming in the form of water. This consciousness is so high, it's truly extraordinary. And the more we learn about it, the more ridiculous it is. And so they went into the Bay of Izmir in Istanbul, which is the most polluted body of water in the world. The bay looks like oil. It's black. It's got bubbles on top. It looks like oil. It does not look like water at all. It's so polluted. And they took this and put it in these two big tanks. One was the control, and one was the other one. And they just poured in a couple gallons of this water, and they mixed it up. And they watched as this water went from black to cream to cleaner to cream until it was crystal clear. Meanwhile, on those two beakers that were sitting on there, I watched, and so did this whole room full of people, as the water went slowly down, 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 and what was above looked like distilled water until it was all the way down at the bottom, and it was crystal clear. There was no pollution in the water at all. And then they took a fish out of the aquarium that was downstairs and put it in the one that was one of the beakers. And this fish swam around actually for about 3 hours while we did all these other things like that. And I had said, if there's anything in there, it's going to kill the fish. And the fish was fine. What was interesting is that after this was all over, they took the little fish out and they put it back in the aquarium. The next morning when they came in, the aquarium was crystal clear, just from the little bit of water that was on the body or on the mouth of the fish. The United Nations has now entered into this one. So has Russia and 8 other major countries. They're about to do a $1.4 billion showcase in Turkey and to show things. They can actually go into a desert where there is no water and no life and no nothing and spray this water on the soil, special version of it, and the whole thing, root changes, the climate changes, and it turns the desert into a lush area. This water is so conscious that it makes the weather change and brings water to a desert. They're going to demonstrate this and prove it to the world. The United Nations and the World Bank is involved in this, backing this up. And so what's happening here, folks? What about, and I didn't talk about this before, but I'm going to now, because at this point I'm just sort of pulling all the stops. What happens if you drink it? Well, I don't know, but according to the people who are in Turkey, and this is hearsay, that when the water goes in, it just removes all diseases from the body, period, in the end. And brings that person back. It's like baptism with water. It just brings it all back. And it's an interesting analogy, too, because in baptism, you can only do it once, right? With this water, you can only do it once. You can only drink so much of the water, and then you can't drink any more of it for the rest of your life. Nobody knows why. Only that's the way it is. And so, according to them, their statements is that they have cured every disease known to man and over 10,000 people in Turkey just drinking this water. What's that going to mean to the world? What's it going to mean to the world when this water can go into any body of water and clean it? The water goes right through a body of water like a bay, even if it's hundreds and hundreds of feet deep, cleans it totally clear, goes into the sediment, 90 feet into the sediment, and on either side, and removes all toxins and brings it back to the way it was 10,000 years ago. And this is real. This is not a fantasy. This is not Steven Spielberg. This is the real thing, and it's actually happening on our planet today, right now. And you can spray it on a garbage dump. It'll instantaneously put out all the fires, the methane fires. And over a period of just a few days, it only takes 4 days, it sterilizes it, including including AIDS and cancer and everything else. It totally sterilizes it and converts all the chemicals into organic fertilizer. It's conscious, folks. It knows what to do. And they've done this, and they've watched how out of this garbage, everything is transformed into organic fertilizer, and all these plants, apple trees, tomato plants, and all these things are coming out of this from nowhere. Who knows where it's coming from? Whatever direction it goes into, it always knows what is best for life. And it always does exactly the right thing. When we were doing the research before, and I need to bring this up because some of you know the work we were doing for several years. We came into this place here at Denver in 1994, and Denver was incredibly polluted at that time. And we began to run, with Bob Dratch and Slim Sperling, began to run a waveform pattern of a substance, which I'll explain in a moment, through something called a tensor, which is really just an antenna that affects the gravity waves in space, and was able to, through a new science, which many people call voodoo science, because they don't believe it, though it works, they were able to change the atmosphere over Denver, and for 1 year of 1995, Denver became the cleanest in all recorded history. And then when I stopped it, and then during that year, by the way, we were receiving 30,000 people a month into the city. And the government, the city, the mayor, because, or whoever it was, the EPA here, because it was so clean, dropped all the rules and told all the people, just pollute all you want. So they went crazy. They were just going for it because it was so clean. And then when they dropped the rules in the middle of 1996, by the end of 1996, it was so polluted again that they had to reinstate all those rules. The EPA would not admit that we had anything to do with this. And that's another whole subject, which I really is not important to get into right now. Well, what was this substance that they were broadcasting out in the water? What it was a rain cloud. Right as it was ready to dump water, and right as it was shooting electricity, lightning out of it. Nobody really knows this subject, but is a rain cloud really superionized water? Is it conscious? Is it aware? Trees are aware. Lots of things are aware. NASA has discovered that everything is conscious, by the way. They discovered that not only is everything a hologram, but everything is alive. They know this for sure. Everything, even a beer can, it's alive, it's conscious, and it's evolving. Everything is evolving. Everything is going, including human life, is moving through very specific steps that shows that, without exception, every molecule in existence is a living molecule and it's alive. And this is science that's come up to this conclusion. And a rain cloud, when it's filled with this electrical charge, it brings life. It's the bringer of life to land. Without those rain clouds, there'd be no life on this land. It'd be dry, barren. It brings the life to the land. And so it just so happened that we were using the same vibration, we think it is anyway, as the superionized water that Turkey's come up to. They've just learned how to stabilize that energy into a bottle like this right here. And so this little substance, this little vibration that's in this bottle, you don't actually have to drink it to make it work. This is the other thing that we're discovering. You can, in the same way that psychic energy works, which we're going to be discussing here in a little bit, all knowledge is known to everybody in this room. You know everything in existence. There isn't anything you don't know. You know everything that's going on in every planet and every little bug on the ground. You know what they're all thinking. It's all in the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is connected, first of all, to the earth and the biosphere. Your subconscious mind is not only yours, but it belongs to all people in existence, including all other life, animals, everything else, the biosphere. And the superconscious mind is everything else. and you can, or that's the lower self and the higher self, if you want to talk about it like that. And you have access to all knowledge. And there's other ways to access knowledge than the normal ways that we think. And so simply by this existing on earth now, it's accessible to you through meditation. You can make changes within yourself simply by knowing that it exists. And this is one of the things that in actual meditation we're going to talk about. The first part of this is sort of a lecture between here and now. The next part, we're going to give demonstrations and show you directly and go into meditation to give you the ways to bring this into your lives. And so there's different ways to do it. You can bring this water into you without ever touching it. And simply because it's here, it's in the grids, it's known, it's there already. I don't believe it was here though prior to 14 years ago, not in this kind of form. It may have been in a rain cloud, but I don't think it was in this kind of form. And so when you begin to look at these sequences of events that we've been talking about here, where you have the UFOs appearing suddenly all over the world, but of course they're not real. And the crop circles that are appearing all over the world, and of course that's Wegenberg doing that one. And suddenly, at the same time, in a very short sequence of years, you have another emerging phenomena of the Bible unfolding itself, revealing that the past and the present and the future are already known. This begins to change the equation of life as we know it. And there's new water emerging on the earth that can heal anything, either bodies or people or planets or the whole thing. It's obvious, to me anyway, that we're not in the normal ballgame that we were in before. There's something a lot bigger going on than we know. And but there's even something more important going on. More important than this. I feel it's more important, which has to do with the children and what's emerging in the lives of these children. And I'm going to begin talking about this now, though I don't know if I may have enough time to complete this or not. I'll do my best here to complete it. I'm not sure. It seems that this fifth phenomena is coming from outside the system. Actually, all of these things are probably coming from outside the system, but this one definitely appears to be this way. There are children appearing in the world now, and this is not a little thing, there's a lot of them that have made a change in the very structure of their existence, in the DNA molecule itself, and they are not human beings. 3 new human races have now appeared on Earth that have different DNA than ours. They're not human. And I believe they're not even coming from here. They're coming from a much higher level of existence. They're coming down here to help us transition at this time. But these kids are really different than what we know. I need to turn the slides back on just for a moment. Or I guess it is back on, isn't it? This first group of children, nobody's written about until just recently. And this book here, wait a minute, I got to say one more thing first. I'm forgetting. I'm bringing this book up not because of the diet that's in it. That's another subject, and I'm not concerned with that. There's something that was written in this book that is important for us to understand, and it has to do with blood types. There are 4 blood types. We all know this. There's O, there's A, there's B, there's AB, and there's no others. But what's interesting in this is that for millions of years, up until 15,000 years ago, there was only one blood type, type O. And we were all hunters and eaters of meat, period. No matter what we look like out here, no matter where we're in the world, we were all related by a single blood type. If you were Chinese or African or didn't make any difference where you existed, there was just one single fluid that moved through us all. And then 15,000 years ago, something happened. We became farmers. Basically, that was it. We started eating a new kind of food, and new kinds of food. And we quit eating meat, and we started going, well, not maybe totally, but we started going into eating grains and all kinds of other things that we never ate before. And there are some that feel that there was also climate changes that could have affected this too. But what did happen was the DNA changed. Human DNA changed overnight to something brand new. Before blood changed, DNA changed first, then the blood changed. And there was a DNA change. And so people that have a type O blood have a different DNA than those that have type A. And they also have different stomachs, different pH levels, all kinds of things that are different about these 2 kinds of people. And what they were doing was they were adapting to the new reality of a new kind of food being immersed in a new kind of climate. And then further down the line, there was another switch, and I understand this one less, but which resulted in type B blood, which is another DNA change. And less recently, there was another DNA change where it went to AB. And the immune systems are totally different on all 4 of these things, and they're a different kind of people. They have different needs and everything else, because they're really, what's now the end result of all of this is there's 4 kinds of people in the world. Regardless of what they look like on the outer surface, there's 4 different human DNAs that are associated with humanity. Well, we're in the midst of another one of these big changes. What we're experiencing here on Earth right now is the biggest change that anyone has ever experienced on this planet, at least in any kind of memory that we ever have. We're not only experiencing the dramatic weather changes that are beginning to occur, but we are eating totally different foods also. We're eating the world's foods, which has never happened before, not on this level. We have access to anything. You can eat Thai food or Chinese food or anything else in Finland, and these things affect you because you are what you eat. And there's huge effects, but there's other things going on. The technological society, the industrial revolution that has occurred that's ended up in this technological way of being is something that has never been seen before. In 1900, there were 30 million species of life on this planet. Today, 100 years later, there's half of that. Half of the world has died in a blink, geological blink of an eye. It's gone. And it's still going really fast. No one's ever seen anything like that. It took hundreds and hundreds of millions of years to get to those 30 million species. And in a matter of minutes and seconds, half of the life of this planet is dead because of our technology. Our technology is anti-life. It is doing everything it can to destroy life on this planet as fast as it can. And believe me, it's really doing a good job. And the water is interesting because the water actually will allow the dark and the light, the technological aspect that was available to, that we all are addicted to, this will allow us to continue. We can still pollute all we want because the pollution will not affect the environment. We can continue to move, and who knows what that influence is going to have on us out here, especially if it means the end of all disease and everything else. This is these are factors that we can't put into the equation right now because it's too complex. But what we do know that has happened is that these three new human races have emerged. They're not going to emerge, or maybe someday they already have. And we are scientifically established that they have emerged. The first one is, where should I start? Is what is called the Indigo Children. This book is by Lee Carroll and Jan Tober. And by the way, in Seattle, I said that I thought that Jan Tober had died. That's not true. I got wrong information from someone, and I will apologize to her forever. But she's happy and healthy, and there's no problem. But these two have written this book called The Indigo Children. They put the material together, but they didn't really write it. It was written by doctors, psychologists, and professional people from around the world that are experiencing this change of what they're now being called the Indigo Children. The Indigo Children was a name labeled by a certain person, and they've just stuck to it and continued on. There are beliefs around it that they're coming from the Blue Ray and all kinds of things. But scientifically speaking, they're a very unique person. They have a new DNA change, but we don't know what it is yet. And this is what I'm pushing to have Lee Carroll and other people investigate. It's obvious they have a new DNA because they have a different liver. They have a liver designed to eat junk food. Well, if you're going to feed your kids junk food, eventually they're going to have to do something. They can't keep eating that stuff. And that's what they're doing. But the main difference is that they're geniuses. They have an IQ that's very, very high, and we're trying to figure out it's somewhere, I believe, around 130 average. And in the old days, 130 IQ meant one child out of 10,000. Only now, 80 to 90% of all the children being born in the United States have this new DNA. That's what they're estimating. We're forth a nation of geniuses. What's interesting is that the only way of dealing with these children, our schools and everyone else, see them as below average. They're giving them the attention to, what's it called? What is it? Attention deficit syndrome. Disorder, ADD.